State Warriors have cleaned out their lockers. They talked at the postseason press conference discussing some of their plans, what they think about the future of the organization, and we've gotten a little glimpse into what they may potentially do this summer. That's ahead on today's show.
You are Locked On Warriors.
Stop trying to turn the page on us so fast.
Your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
We got 4 championships.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Every team has a chance if Steph's on the team.
Your team every day.
It's good, everyone. Happy Friday, or just welcome to the weekend. Whenever, wherever you're listening to this audio or video podcast, very much appreciate you. You can check us out on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe if you're hanging out with us. Hit that thumbs up button. It goes a long way, and we very much appreciate it. You can also check us out wherever you get your audio podcast, a perfect way to take us on the go. We're here after games live. We're not going to have to talk to you after games for quite some time, although we will be here for the California Classic, for Summer League, NBA Draft Night, all the breaking news types of events. And of course, the Warriors are going to make some moves this offseason, no doubt about it. We will be here with you. This episode's brought to you by Prizepicks. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prizepicks. Run your game. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly at 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. That's the flagship station of the Golden State Warriors. Also covered the team for CBS News Bay Area. Call letters KPIX. All right, let's get into the show. I've had 48 hours to reflect on this season, and here's what I've kind of come up with. It's a weird feeling. You lost second round of the playoffs, but it does feel like you overachieved from a season that most believed play-in, maybe playoffs, 6 seed at best. Maybe you win a series, sneak one out. But it was kind of that season where it was, all right, truly how much can we expect from Steph Curry and Draymond Green at this age? What kind of glimpses into the future are we going to get with players like Pods, with players like Moody and Kuminga? And then lastly, the big swing. Will the Warriors do anything at the deadline that kind of tips their hand on what their future looks like? And they did that big thing. They went out and got Jimmy Butler. Had the experiment not worked, I think we'd be sitting in a completely different spot. But considering they went, I believe, 23-7 after the Jimmy Butler trade in the regular season, the proof is in the pudding that it's not time to get out the TNT yet. It is time to tweak this thing and do what you can to give number 30 and team another shot to potentially win this thing. You were competitive and then some against some of the best teams in the NBA, not only at the end of the season, but really all season. I mean, you handled the Knicks late in the year a couple of times. You beat the Nuggets. The Warriors beat the Lakers. They beat Oklahoma City multiple times, once when Shea went for 52. So there's only one mindset you can have right now. And I know someone's going to hop in the comments on this show or the chat. Welcome to you all, the everydayers that listen to this off season or not. And you're going to say it's time to take a step back, to trade Draymond Green, to see if you can find a quarter for Jimmy Butler. The latter's not happening. Like, Butler's a Warrior. There's too much money involved there to where I don't think any other team would come calling about Jimmy Butler, unless maybe that team's the Phoenix Suns, because we did hear that there was all that attraction. But we're going into next year, as of right now, assuming that Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler are 1,000% going to be together, and Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green are 99.9% for sure going to be together. The one mindset you have is it's go time. We're running out of time. Let's maximize this thing, because Steph Curry's not slowing down next year if healthy. Now, the latter part is crucial. Obviously, a tweaked hamstring like he had at the end of the season, usually caused by overuse, usually taxation on the body. You get a little bit older, it's a little bit easier to pull that thing. So that's terrifying. But you got to make sure, if this is the last dance chapter of the Warriors, you don't leave anything on the table. 2 timelines, no thanks. Your timeline, Steph Curry, it's always been Steph Curry. You have 2 more seasons of this thing, with next year being the best chance the Warriors will have to win an NBA championship. You spent 4 seasons developing lottery picks and cobbling together mid-level exemptions, exceptions. Go big or go home. Now is the time to go big or go home. Unfortunately, that go big or go home is going to look different than we thought it would last offseason because the Warriors are in no position of the Rockets and the Thunder that just have a million assets and cap space and all these different things they can do. They have to be strategic, and they only have so many moves that they can make, you would think. But to get a little glimpse into what Joe Lacob believes about the current roster he has constructed as of May 16th, 2025, he said he's pretty positive that if Steph Curry had played in this series, the Warriors would have won. That's what makes it so frustrating. You win a first-round matchup against a 2 seed. Of course, there are the asterisks coming out from certain people saying that the Rockets aren't your typical 2 seed. They had no business being a 2, yada, yada. They don't have their star. They don't have their go-to. Erroneous at the end of the day. Irrelevant because the Warriors won the series and you play who's on the schedule. And then you win game 1 when Steph Curry starts against the Minnesota Wolves, and the rest of it complete wash. So we don't know if Joe Lacob is right when he says he's positive that they'd have won the series. But here's where we stand with the Dubs. And I disagree with him. I don't think they would have won it. I think they could have made a run. I think they could have potentially won the West or made it to the Western Conference Finals. But I think you saw the nucleus of players not named Steph and Jimmy, and I guess Draymond for that matter, defensively, were just not good enough this season to go the distance. I just find it hard to believe. But then again, if you met the Knicks in the NBA championship, you had proof and you had tape of how you can beat them a couple straight times earlier in the season. So who knows? Maybe Joe's right. But here's where we stand. The future is not to the level of Milwaukee or Phoenix, which is to say grim. Even if this doesn't work out, this Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, even if next year it's another 7 seed and this time they don't get past the 2nd seed, and that's that, and we're talking about one last actual final dance, it's not all a disaster. Let's start with the fact that they're better than Milwaukee and Phoenix and teams that are in big trouble right now, Philly, whatever. They're better. The Warriors proved that Jimmy and Steph leading a team can work. It can legit work. But Curry did state on Thursday that it can't just be a couple players at the top. This has to be a full team thing. They need a better team all around. There's no I in team. There's no JIMMY. There's no Steph in team. There's a T, an E, an A, and an M in team. And Steve Kerr having to play musical chairs with this depth rotation at the end of the season, it's not a recipe for success. When you look at the Knicks, you look at the Celtics, you look at the Thunder, one thing that they have in common, you know who's going to be relied upon in the playoffs. You know it. Every single box score you look at, unless it's a blowout, you're getting the same 8 guys consistently, and you're getting mostly the same production, give or take a player here or there. The Warriors had Moody going from 30 minutes per game to start the playoffs to DNPs. It's not what the Dubs need next year. They need reliability. They need better players, more consistent players, bigger players around Steph. We'll get into the bigger portion in just a minute. But again, this is not a disaster, and it's somehow not a disaster. The Warriors were able to get Butler for Wiggins, a combo of players that did not matter here, in just a lone protected draft pick. Not the worst deal in the world. Sure, you're paying them a lot of money, which leads to a flexibility issue this offseason. How are you going to get better? But they proved they're not that far off, and they did not have to give up a ton to get Jimmy Butler. The Warriors have their first-round picks in 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029, 2031. So when you're talking about the rebuilding stage, when Steph Curry's contract runs out in 2027, you've got picks for days. You have your first round capital as of right now. Don't get too loose with it. Don't get too loose with it. Milwaukee, meanwhile, they got to give all their draft picks to Portland whenever they're good, and the Pelicans. So any good picks they have, swap, they're out the door. So they're in trouble. But draft picks are building blocks to the future, and unfortunately, we have seen firsthand that none of us should accept the future yet. What Steph Curry did in the second half of the season was real. We all saw it with our own eyes, and we don't think that's going away after one offseason. Steph is legitimately awesome still. Quit looking at the age and just look at the contract. You have 2 more years of this guy. Don't accept anything less than giving him a real shot. If you are not on board with giving him one more shot, especially considering he didn't go out on his own terms, if you don't want to give him another shot and you want to turn the page, then I think you are greatly discrediting how damn good this man still is. And how is it possible? How is it possible that all these years later, with all the assets the Warriors have had to potentially do things, that we're heading into an offseason and the team is not nearly as good as it should be, minus the top 3 players? But a big thing to note, 3 of your guys, they combine to make up 90% of your cap space. Butler, Draymond, Curry. That's an issue. The Warriors now saying they want to have a better middle of the rotation. They want better role players. They want bigger role players. How are they going to do this? Let's discuss coming up next on Locked On Warriors. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Prizepicks. Basketball season has now hit its peak, and with the playoffs winding down, now's the time to put your sports knowledge to work with Prizepicks. It's the top platform for daily fantasy sports. You get paid instantly. It is good stuff. You pick more or less on 2-player projections, and you're in. It could be points, it could be rebounds, it could be assists, whatever. You've got a shot up to win 2,000 times your entry dollars. This week, there are only so many teams left. Who are you taking points-wise? You going with the Shea over, the under? You going to cobble it together with some Chet Holmgren? What are you going to do? On Tuesdays, remember this one, folks, player projections are discounted up to 25% on Taco Tuesday for even more value. The payout hits fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. So download the app today, Prizepicks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. All right, so all indications are, at least at this very minute, that a major shakeup may not be in the cards. Instead, the Warriors, they're going to focus on Steph. They're going to focus on Jimmy, Draymond, once again being the veteran core. And their plans are this offseason retooling the middle of the rotation. How does that look with the lack of flexibility that they do have? But they were 23-7 with Butler and company, and they think that was a large enough sample size to realize that it's not broken. And if it's not broken, you don't fix it, but you do have to tweak it, because no Curry in that last series against the Wolves in the second round was proof that this team is just flat out not good enough. But the conversation is not about getting a star this offseason. They got him at the deadline, Jimmy Butler. So the big fish hunt, casting the rod, trying to it's Paul George. It's not going to happen this offseason. At least it doesn't seem that way. It would be actually insanity if something as big as Paul George or Lowry Markkanen or any of these moves that the Warriors looked into last season even festered up. Although we know our guy Siegel with Clutch Points is out there. He's going to be throwing content left and right. Warriors are interested in Giannis. And the fans that have done the research are going to say, how the hell are the Warriors going to get Giannis without dishing away Steph Curry? Like, how can they possibly make it work? And for those of you that are saying, well, you can make the money work with Jimmy Butler, the Bucks are in no position to do that. They want to compete now, getting rid of Giannis to bring in Butler, unless that Butler, there's no unless. I don't think it's going to happen. But when it festers up this offseason, which it likely will, we'll talk about it, right? Why not? Brings us to Jonathan Kuminga, your most prized asset right now. Joe Lacob's a big fan of this guy, straight up. We've known this from day one. He is Joe Lacob's guy. Lacob told Anthony Slater, quote, I was listening to the guys behind me give running commentary, T-Wolves fans. Kuminga's the guy they talked about all night long. He's the only guy that could really guard Anthony Edwards out there. He did a pretty damn good job. He had a tough situation with the DMPs from the last series, and to bounce back from that, I give him a lot of credit. I am a big fan of his. League sources have stated that a reunion between the two sides is still on the table. So for those of you that say he's 1,000% gone, maybe you are right. And maybe this is just politics talking. But according to these league sources, it's still on the table. And if that would happen, it would clear the runway and there would be no flexibility to change these plans. If Kuminga were to come back, it would have Steph, JK, Jimmy, Draymond starting together, being a focal point, even being stated in Anthony Slater's article that Butler has discussed working with Kuminga this summer. But during this end of the season press conference that takes place when the Warriors players are clearing out their lockers and calling it the season, saying goodbye to the media and giving their plans for the future, there was a lot of Warriors players saying, we wish Jonathan Kuminga the best, whether it's here or whether it is elsewhere. And the latter, elsewhere, is a very real possibility considering his standing with Steve Kerr late in the season and most of his career. We'll always wonder the exact reasons why JK got some of those DNPs, a lot of those DNPs late in the season. But it does sound like we have a little glimpse into why, and it's exactly what we thought with some wordage. Logan Murdoch of The Ringer is reporting that Kerr had an issue with Kuminga looking off Steph Curry at times during games. Okay. The exact quote, despite his talent, Kuminga's propensity to look for his shot at the expense of the flow of Golden State's offense has irked the coaching staff during a late season game against the Blazers. You remember that one? Very late in the year. Team sources say Kerr was incensed after several instances in which Kuminga looked off Curry to create his own offense. Kuminga, God forbid with this word, subsequently, okay, we got it, received DNPs in the Warriors' regular season finale against the Clippers and then again in their play-in matchup against the Grizzlies. By the start of the playoffs, many within the organization wondered whether Kuminga, who's eligible for an extension, had played his last game as a Warrior. I'm in the firm camp of a sign and trade is best case scenario. I don't see how you try to run it back again. Let me know if you think otherwise. But a sign and trade can be best case for both sides. It's a fresh start for Kuminga. Hopefully, a nice contract. I think if you want to look for the silver lining of that final series against the Wolves, because there wasn't much of a silver lining there. It sucked. Steph Curry smiles in that series. Game one had many. Games 2 through, 5? Over under a half a smile. I may take the under. Like, it was a lot of frowning on the sideline. Like, I'm not going to get a chance to suit up again. I'm doing all this rehab for nothing, aren't I? But the one silver lining we got is that Kuminga definitely showed he could put the ball in the basket. He showed that he still has plenty of potential, that he can be valuable somewhere. And you just know some of these stubborn GMs and these player whisperers in the NBA that see a player oozing with talent like that will take a crack at him and will overpay for a player like Jonathan Kuminga. So fresh start for Kuminga. You hope he gets a nice contract that in return, the Warriors get a slew of rotation players or a lone rotation player that have immediate value. Two types of rotation players they could use heading into next season, depending on how much they shake up this thing. But you already know what I'm going to say. It's the scoring punch. We saw that need against the Wolves. And it's size. We definitely saw that need against the Wolves and a lot of times in the past few seasons. Let's discuss how they're going to get those two things coming up on Locked On Warriors. You guys ever heard of Game Time? If you haven't, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNBA, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. If you're going to live events, and it doesn't have to be just sports, it's concerts, it's comedy, it's theater, whatever it is, Game Time's the place. The intensity and buzzer beaters, fans losing their minds, all things in the NBA playoffs that you like. And Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games, or if we're not talking NBA playoffs, for anything. Prices on the app drop closer to your event start time. Killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, no surprise fees. Game Time is a total game changer. I think my favorite thing is the panoramic views from your seat, because 213, 117, it doesn't do its justice. You can actually see full 360 how you're going to look when you are in the arena. The NFL schedule release just dropped, and you better believe I'm looking at the fall calendar. Which games are we heading to at Levi's? Game Time makes securing NFL tickets just as easy. You'll find great seats for as low as $100, and with Game Time guarantee, your tickets are 100% authentic. They'll arrive on time, and like I said, always the best price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Forget the scalping. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. All right, so the Warriors decision makers believe they need more positional size across the board, to which a lot of you listening, watching this show are saying, thank you. I've been saying this for years. Sign me up on the staff. Center, they need more size at the center position, more consistency at the center position. So Draymond Green is not playing that at 6'7", taking a beating at that position throughout the season, although effectively a literal beating from players that are much bigger than him. And you saw it with Julius Randle at 6'9", but powerful late in the season. But it's not just center. It's otherwise. You need to be positionally bigger. And we've known this for a while. I remember on the radio at 95.7 in 2023, Ty Jerome season, Anthony Lamb season. I was begging for anyone at the cutoff that the Warriors could add someone on the market. And I was saying, I mean, half of it was being facetious, but I was Dwight Howard, Nerlens Noel, Serge Ibaka, guys that weren't even in the league. But that's how desperate you are when you got 6'6" Anthony Lamb trying to replicate a big man. He's your best solution to a size issue. And the Warriors did not address it in the offseason whatsoever. Loon was back. That was part of their plan. They brought in Kyle Anderson, slow-mo, who gave them some size, but not some physical presence. And we found out pretty quickly that Kyle Anderson was at best a role player and someone that was probably just going to be a contract attached in the grand scheme of things. And that's exactly what he came to be. It's not just a center, though. Julius Randle gave you that recency bias that should stick with the Warriors all offseason. A lineup of Draymond, Jimmy, Buddy, Steph, and Pods, or swap out Buddy for Peyton, whatever it is, Randle just proved what we've known for a while, that size does matter, especially when that size hits the three, like Randle did, at a better clip than all your short kings. That is a recipe for disaster. Peyton's a free agent. He's an NBA champ. Kerr clearly loves him. But based on these reports of the Warriors needing to get bigger at their positions, Gary Payton, who sometimes plays small forward, doesn't seem like a chance in a million years that they re-sign GP2. But we've seen crazier things. Aside from that, what are your options? Because in addition to size, you also need scoring. And per Anthony Slater, some in the organization would like to explore Podziemski's value. He's 22 years old. He only makes $3 million a year. That's a lot of money. But in this league, it's peanuts. And he just put up 28 in his last game of the season. Despite many duds before, he has shown the capabilities of being able to shoot, facilitate, defend, do the little things, play connecting high IQ basketball, and is only 22 years old, $3 million. Catch 22 time. That makes him a great asset to have on your team if he can truly pop and be a consistent dude. But on the other side of the coin is that he's a legit trade chip. He costs nothing and has shown flashes of being solid. So do they use him as one of the few assets they possess, or do they continue with his development while he's on a team-friendly deal? That's a huge summer storyline. We know how much Steve Kerr loves him. Last words we remember him saying to Podziemski that he talked about in his post-game press conference after Game 5 was, Pods is hesitant out there. He's passing up shots. We want him chucking it. So when we heard him say 7 to 10 threes last offseason, that wasn't just coach speak. Like, Steve Kerr truly believes that Pods needs to look for his shot more, that he can create more than he has, and that he needs to be comfortable in that position. So that's something that they're going to grapple with this offseason. Do you use him somehow to get someone bigger, maybe some positional size? Or do you keep Pajemski, knowing you have him for years, paying him nothing? And if he does pop, if he does become all-star caliber, like Joe Lacob said, you got a hell of a deal. And that helps skip a rebuild or keep you really good for a long time when you have very cheap players that are effective, a la the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's a summer storyline. But we know how Joe Lacob feels about these young guys. Clearly. Here's another quote for you. I would hope our young players take yet another leap. I get very upset when I read all this crap on the internet, these comments by people, this guy's crap, that guy's crap. The drafts were terrible. He said, bull. And I would imagine that he threw the word in after it, expletive for this show. Our drafts were not bad at all. These guys are very young. They've had to fit into a very difficult situation with experienced players. It's not like they can just go out and put up numbers. So I think we've drafted very well. We've got some good young players. End quote. Good in flashes, yes. Have proved that they can play in the NBA and be effective in flashes, yes. Let's start with Moody and Pods. Two very important talents to the future. They were a part of a starting lineup that I forgot the running total on what they were, but was it 15-0, 16-0 at one point in the season, late in the year? But they were usually nowhere to be found in the postseason. Next year is your best chance you are ever going to have to compete for an NBA championship with Steph Curry on the squad, because Jimmy and Steph are not getting any younger. So what should they do? What should they do? If you're watching live, leave it in the comments right now. I'm going to react momentarily in the last few minutes that I have on this show. But it's going to be a fun offseason. Giannis and the big stars, probably not. But that move that turns the Warriors from a second-round team, a team that overachieved, that kind of felt it out this season, figuring out what they needed. They now have figured out what they need. Jimmy and Steph are good enough at the top. As a two-headed snake, those two are good enough to compete if they have the right players around them. Big enough players around them. Again, Julius Randle will leave such a lasting image in all our heads entering this offseason, because that's 6'9" that can stretch it. And he was maybe the most devastating player you played all season, not named Zubac. Really. Like, he was fascinating in this Warriors series. He dominated. He was up there with Anthony Edwards. I know Kolsky said easy now. In this series alone, he was up there. Like, he was very, very good. All right, to the comments we go for the last few minutes of this show. And thank you, everyone, for joining a couple days after the season is over. Jacob, appreciate it. First like. Many believe the Warriors need to turn the page on Draymond. How do you do that is the question. I'm not 1,000% opposed. Now, there's someone that left us a one-star comment, review and comment on the audio podcast earlier in the season when we suggested that Draymond Green could potentially, maybe they should look into trading Draymond Green, into putting them into one of these deals and just turning the page on it. Not because he's not effective anymore, not because he doesn't work, just because, and this is before they had Jimmy Butler, just because offensively he brings truly nothing to the table. The facilitating portion that he is good at, he's great at connecting with Steph. It's almost nullified at this point because of all the sloppy, dumb turnovers he has. Like, they've gotten worse over the years, I feel like, or they've always been bad and they've just been masked by the Warriors having, better talent, which is probably what it is. But yeah, I think many Warriors fans believe that they would like to turn the page on Draymond Green now that they have Jimmy Butler, who brings somewhat of that leadership, brings that leadership skill set, brings in the defensive quarterback mentality where he knows where to be, knows where to get players, and he brings an offensive approach as well. The question then becomes, what do you do with Draymond? He's making upwards of $30 million a year. Who's going to make a deal? What are you going to get in return? How are you going to line that thing up? And more so, the reason that I'm not going to bring it up a ton this offseason until it actually gets some legs under it. Do you actually think that Lacob Kerr, the other Lacob, Mike Dunleavy, Steph Curry, all these guys in the same room would sign off on Draymond Green being traded? I don't, but we've seen crazier things in the NBA. Belgium in the house. What's good? Realistic trade to get bigger. Jabari Smith Jr. from the Rockets. Kuminga for Jabari Smith Jr. They didn't utilize Jabari Smith Jr. that well. He's 6'10". He's size. I like his game a lot. I don't know if the Rockets are going to want to deal with you after what you just did in the playoffs and some of the vitriol that was there overall. But again, if they think that Kuminga's that dude, then maybe that could come into play. Outside of that, I don't think there's any way to get it done with the Rockets. I don't think you have the assets to make a deal, and I think their eyes may be on bigger. Barry saying it's over. The window's done. They can't compete with three old guys against a young league that is even more athletic and strong. Highly disagree. Proof is in the pudding. They competed. These last couple months of the season, if you did not see a large enough sample size to know that Curry and Butler can work with the right players around them, I don't know what to tell you. They beat everyone. They beat, minus the Clippers, they beat everyone this season. Everyone. They won the season series with Oklahoma City. They won the season series with the Wolves, granted, very early in the year. They swept the Knicks. They took down a young Pistons team multiple times. Like they did their job and showed us as fans that they're good enough for one final hurrah. Now, 2 more years of this, I don't know. We'll have to see how the whole aging thing comes into play. But you're not going into this offseason saying, let's find some mid-level guys that are 6'2", that are Kyle Andersons, and D'Anthony Melton may actually be an intriguing piece because he looked like a good fit last year. He actually is really nice. Like, he's a good player. Former, 6th man of the year in contention kind of guy that's looking for a chance to get his career back on track, but he's coming off an injury. He has not played many games the last couple of years. Because of that, he's going to be super cheap. Maybe worth a look and a waiver. We'll see. But, yeah, I don't know. So Draymond severely limits Warriors front office options for adding size and athleticism. Personality fit with Draymond, huge option. Let's go to the top one first. Limits their options, adding size and athleticism. Absolutely. That's a big part of this. I mean, he's making good money there. And I guess the camera has done out on me. Hold on. We'll do this live. I guess you can't see me, but you can hear me. High risk. Someone saying go for Kawhi. Clippers aren't trading Kawhi. Just running it back with this old core will backfire. They need a defensive big. They need a 3-and-D wing. It's not the old core that will backfire. I truly believe that. I think Jimmy and Curry, as I've mentioned so many times this show, that's not the issue. I think they can win with these two guys and compete. They just need better role players. And there's a massive issue. It's going to be very tough to get them with the position that they're in. Yes, Randall did absolutely destroy Draymond. Someone's saying, let's get Lonzo Ball, a 6'7" pass first point guard that plays defense. Lonzo Ball has been highly irrelevant the last few years in the NBA, which once again could lead to another buy low player. But how are you going to get Lonzo Ball? That's what we'll say about a lot of these players. How are we going to get a lot of these players? There's been mixed opinions on Podziemski. Someone saying he's definitely not a starter. If he's not a starter and you don't think he's the heir to the shooting guard position that Clay left, or the backup point, or someone that should be playing 30 plus minutes a game, then you could probably find a team that would see the value in having a guy that's $3 million that has a different timeline than the Warriors, who truly need to win right now. They don't have any benefit from trading Draymond Green and, going for a draft pick or something like that and trying another 2 timelines version. Like, all you can do, you've put your chips in the middle of the table when you brought in Butler. All you can do is enhance to that or blow the entire thing up, which I don't think is going to happen. So very much appreciate it. The meat of the roster needs revamping. I don't know how, but that's what they need to do. Amen. Amen. And then lastly, they need to get the brothers on the team, Seth Curry and Steph Curry. Hey, when you can't beat them, just get a storyline. Get the brothers. Get the brothers. All right. Well, you can't see me. My camera died. That's what happens after a long week and a long season. That is kind of the look ahead for what the Warriors are planning on doing this offseason per the inside sources, a la Anthony Slater. That's kind of where we stand. And obviously, more updates to come. Starting Monday? Starting Monday the 19th, we are focusing on NBA draft. The Golden State Warriors have a second-round pick from Miami. Who will they go with? We'll look at some potential second-round mock drafts. We'll bring on guests from various collegiate scouting sites, from various teams. There'll be rumors galore. We'll talk combine. We'll talk players that could be on the Dubs radar. And then free agency, obviously, will open up shortly after that. But the slow season is upon us. Let's just find content any way we can get it and talk about our beloved Golden State Warriors. Appreciate you guys for joining me. Ladies, appreciate it as always. We will talk to you soon. And yes, Luka did get traded, so anything is indeed possible. Buckle your seatbelts, folks. Buckle your seatbelts because something is going to happen. This is Locked On Warriors. Subscribe and hit that thumbs up on the way out. Peace.